My name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. We are back with some more sci-fi. Today, I am reviewing Fracture by EJ Fisch. This is the fourth book in the Ziva Paven series, a military sci-fi set on this country, or planet rather, known as Hafez, and these Hafizians, and their very militaristic setup. And this one takes place 4 years after book 3, and yes, we will be talking about spoilers, including the gigantic spoiler of the end of book 3, so if you are interested in this but don't want to be spoiled, I will have the links down to other reviews down in the description below. But this one takes place 4 years after the end of the previous book, where the series namesake, Ziva Paven, faked her death. The ship exploded, but she got out of it in time. And this one carries on after the remaining members of that Black Ops, Spec Ops team have basically continued. Skeet is the new head of it, and Zinni and Araska from the previous books are all still on board. They are still Team Alpha. They have still maintained the highest status in their agency. And they get word that there is a Hafizian woman on a mostly human planet, probably working for this mob dude and doing some really dark stuff. And they get basically highly encouraged by the royal family to go look into this. And so they head there, not just because of this assignment, although they do want to maintain their alpha status, but also because this is the last place that they have a sighting of Ziva herself. Now, admittedly, the synopsis on the back is like trying to like only low-key hint at it, but Ziva is literally the namesake of this series, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say that yes, she does pop up in the story moving forward, but this story has an extra edge that the other books didn't, because, well, yes, it is a lot more of the same fighting, and it's a military sci-fi, so there's a lot of gunfights and car chases and spaceships maybe exploding or being in danger of it, and other explosions and fire and such. This has an added relationship angst element to it that I didn't know that I was missing in the previous books. No, I take that back. It has a relationship angst element similar to book 1. Book 1, back when Araska thought that Ziva had basically acted on her own to kill his brother before realizing all of the details, and he both had to work with her but also hated her, but no one knew that he knew she was the one that had been sent to kill his brother. Like, it's a whole thing. It was a lot of drama. For all of these are like hardcore military sci-fi, there's some soap opera elements in here. But this one is really angsty because the entirety of Alpha Team is dealing with the emotional fallout of thinking Ziva was dead. Even for a little bit, because of her trick at the end of book 3 and telling Araska to check the time so that he would know that, well, he got a message from her after the time of her death, therefore he knew she was still alive. There was always that moment of, well, maybe that was just a screw up in the technology, maybe the message just lagged, but also all of the other secrets that Ziva had been hiding from them, like being a Nosti and having all of these secret illegal powers. The team is just struggling with the person they were probably closest to in the world held so much from them and essentially was either abandoned them or was taken away from them by circumstance. And they all deal with the fallout from that, all 3 of them, in vastly different ways, and it was so interesting to see the differences across them. You have Araska, who is obsessively searching for her. He's got a crush, you know how that works. You have Skeet, that's just furious. He's just pissed. And then you have Zinni, who is somewhere in between, cannot figure out what her own emotions are. Is she angry? Is she desperate to see Ziva again? Like, she has no idea. So that all layers on top of this plot. And this plot does have a nice mystery to it. I did guess it. But again, and I've said this in so many reviews now, I never hold it against a book when I can guess the mystery, because that is like my number one goal. anytime there's a mystery. Like, oh, there's a thing that's hinted at in the book but never stated directly. It is now my number one goal to figure it out before the book can actually tell me. So figuring it out ahead of time is never a bad sign for a book, in my opinion. But I did like that, despite the fact that I very obviously knew the reveal beforehand, I still had a couple questions. Like, big reveal, knew that, got that. The implications of that big reveal, what does it mean? That was still up in the air. And I liked having those lingering questions even after it was revealed, so it didn't feel like the book had totally lost everything after it was revealed. There was still a lot more to it, a lot more questions. Now, the ending. The author informed me that this story was originally meant to be one giant book, but it got too unwieldy, and so it had to be separated into 2 books. So books 4 and 5 were originally 1. And I get why, although I know plenty of indie authors that have no problem putting 600 plus page books up for sale. I get why most indie authors are really reluctant to do that. So as a result, this story is split up between 2 books, and the author actually suggested that I read both of them back to back because this one ends on a giant cliffhanger, and that did make me a little nervous going into it. I considered doing that. I can't remember a time that I've reviewed 2 full novels in a video simultaneously. Like, I've reviewed multiple short stories in the same collection simultaneously, but I've never done 2 books at once. And after a little bit of thought, I realized that these are being sold as separate books. These have, separate Goodreads pages. The average reader is going to be engaging with these as separate books. So it would make most sense for me to mimic that experience, so I could tell someone who will be reading these books one at a time what it would be like. And in all honesty, yes, it was definitely an open-ended ending, and things are still up in the air. It wasn't quite the gigantic cliffhanger that I was expecting. Obviously, it was much more open-ended than the previous books, but in the previous books, the mission that they set out to do was done by the end of the book. It was a little bit more episodic, with the characters' personal arcs playing a bigger role as opposed to maybe the direct action from the previous book. The intel they got at the end of the book might carry over, but that mission was more or less tied with a bow, done. And in this one, no, the mission is definitely not done at the end of it. You will need to continue reading. However, as someone who reads most of their sci-fi in the way of series, and the average open-ended space opera series is going to have, next time on, the quest to find the missing space child, it struck me as about par for the course, comparatively. Definitely more open-ended than previous installments in the series, and if you are expecting more of the same in that episodic nature, you're probably going to be surprised by just how much is still effed up by the end of this book. But if you're used to reading a lot of hardcore speculative series, it probably won't take you that much by surprise. Just know that this one falls more in the more conflict series category than episodic conflict category. But beyond that, I will eventually get to the next book. I didn't wait that long. I waited way too long between reviewing books 2 and 3, but I didn't wait that long this time. Redeemed myself a little bit. Regardless, I am still enjoying this series. I love this setting because the Ephesians were the minority on this planet, so you really got to dig down more into how humans view Ephesians. Spoiler alert, not well. They're viewed as pretty barbaric, but I liked the idea of that, and there was one character, another form of Ephesian, who had a lot to say, and I want to know more about their backstory, because I feel like there's more, and I feel like we're probably going to get into it in the next book. This story definitely was big enough to fit into 2 books. I would still have reviewed it if it was 600 pages, because I reviewed indie books that were 800 plus pages. Thank you, Shammy Stovall. Regardless, highly enjoyed it. If you've liked the series up to this point, it has even more angst now. Put that on the cover. And I probably won't wait that much longer before getting to the next in the series, because, it is a pretty nice open-ended ending there. And also, I sense the slow burn romance coming to a head, and I am here for it. Or maybe not. Some major stuff did happen that causes conflict. Trouble in paradise. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. Gave this book 5 stars, and with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.